Thank you for joining us today for another exclusive interview sponsored by Immovet. Help your horses reach their maximum potential with Immovet's line of natural homeopathic products. I'm your host today, Aurelian Drumian. Today, we're thrilled to have Sam Sangster of Manton Thoroughbreds with us. Join us as we discuss the emotional triumph of Rashabar Coventry Stakes win at Royal Ascot, the unique qualities that set Rashabar apart, and the journey that led to his success. We'll also explore the impactful legacy of Robert Sangster, the vision behind Manton Thoroughbreds, and the exciting future prospect for Rashabar. Stay tuned for an inspiring conversation with a key figure in modern horse racing. So Sam, great to have you here, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
So could you describe a little bit the emotion you felt when Rashabar won the Coventry Stakes at Royal Ascot 2024, especially considering the significance of the late Robert Sangster silks being carried by the horse?
Yeah, look, I think pride really is a standout for me. Being associated in a family where there's so many of us, all working towards maintaining a legacy that was left to us by our father. My brother Adam, he has an amazing stud farm down in Australia, Swettenham Stud. My brother Ben, a small but very significant broodmare band here in Europe. My nephew Ollie, he's now training, and obviously a lot of horses run in the colours there, and then myself with Manton Thoroughbreds. For when the horse crossed the line, it was kind of like all of that emotion, it just all came flooding in at once. What we'd just achieved in that very moment. Obviously we had to wait another couple of minutes for the photo finish to be called, which was pretty excruciating. But when they did finally announce him the winner, and you saw those colors on the big screen, and just the warmth and love that you felt from everybody associated with the horse. Without the owners, these colors wouldn't still be going. I just put everybody together, and without those guys, Manton Thoroughbreds would have died in its first year. So they're such a significant part of what we do. Obviously Brian and his team, what they did. As I said, I'm a small cog, and just the feeling of pride, really, I go back to that word because it was an incredibly proud moment for me and for my family as well.
Excellent. It seems to be very much of a team effort.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. We all, I lost my father when I was 16. And I wasn't involved in the industry then. But moved down to Australia, and started working with my brother Adam when I was in my 20s. So I was never, it was never a clear path for me to work in racing. And really fell in love with the Australian way. Loved, that's where I really learned a lot about how significant syndicates are, and how they really are the backbone of Australian racing. You look at it now, I couldn't tell you what the percentage of syndicate horses there are that are winning Group 1s, but the percentage of Group 1 horses that are bought out of the sales down in Australia is something like 80%.
Wow.
So their model is, they're getting it right, and it was something that really caught my eye. I was there for nearly 4 years, and came back, I think it was, when it was 2003, 2004. And that's when I, decided that we were going to start putting pieces together of a syndicate, and started off, very small, just doing a small syndicate called Decadent Racing, and then I teamed up with Brian, and we started talking about Manton Thoroughbreds.
Excellent. I'd like to come back a little bit about Rashabar. What
Yeah.
sets him apart from other 2-year-old colts that you've been involved with, in the past?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think he's a horse that has an incredible mentality. He's, even I think before the race, you go to a meeting like Royal Ascot where there's a huge crowd. It's electric there. And for these horses who, he's only had 2 starts, he's a 2-year-old, but mentally he was so forward. He's so forward in his 2 runs that he had before. He went to Chester, which is quite a similar meeting. It's big crowds, but they're right on top of you. They're very, very close to you. There's loud music everywhere. And that the horse wouldn't have even noticed he was there. It was like a routine,
Wow.
walking around at home.
Sure.
And, as well, another thing to note is, where these horses are trained at Manton, it's not like a Lambourn or a Newmarket where there's, 1,500 horses and there's cars going left, right, and center. They're private gallops. There's only one other trainer there. So, they're very much used to a quiet environment. And so to go from Chester to Ascot, and he hasn't even turned a hair, he was so relaxed, conserved all his energy in the paddock, very relaxed going down to the start. And, it's a pleasure to be associated with a horse like him because it's all up here, he's got it in here as well. The way he won that day, to be all on his own on the far side there, to win his group, by 4 or 5 lengths, and to come back into the paddock with his ears pricked and saying, "Okay, where are we going next?" kind of thing. It's very, very exciting to be associated with a horse like him, and I think he's got a huge future.
Excellent. Wow, very good. How was Rashabar identified and selected for purchase as a yearling at the Arcana Deauville August yearling sale? And
Yeah, I
what were the key attributes or maybe qualities that really stood out to you? And
yeah,
I
I
guess Brian,
think.
me.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No worries.
Yeah, sorry. So, Arcana Deauville is a very, very hard sale to go and buy. And we went there with an order to buy a filly for a good client of ours, who would have an order to be able to buy at that sale. You go to that sale, the average I think is near around 150 to 200,000. So we're quite realistic.
Sure.
So we work the sale. For us, Brian and I have always been, we always look at everything, and we put a lot of work into pedigrees, and we also, we have had a lot of success with stallions that might not be as fashionable as others. It's common knowledge that a first season sire, for example, will command a bit of a premium because it has that unknown excitement around it, and the horse is very recently retired off the track. Whereas a Holy Roman Emperor, for example, he's getting of an age where he's probably not as desirable and fashionable. Yes, okay, he's still very popular in Hong Kong, but he was a horse that we had a good long look at because we thought he could fall into our bracket because of that unfashionable stallion. B, he was the first foal out of a Camelot mare. And C, he was quite late on in the sale. So it was kind of like, right, well, let's operate here. Who can we buy it for? And I turned around to Brian and I said, look, if he's sneaking in, let's try and buy him for the syndicate. Because our budget is we buy 6 horses every year, and our budget is we have 300,000 to buy the 6. So it gives us an average of 50,000 per horse. And we kind of when he came in, obviously we blew that budget apart to buy him. But when you go back to what did we love about him, his physically he was kind of head and shoulders above all the Holy Romans I've probably seen in the last 5 years.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
he had everything. He had, strength, depth, balance. He commanded a presence. I genuinely thought that Hong Kong Jockey Club would buy this horse all day long and we wouldn't have a chance. But it just goes to show you need to be there. You need to follow these horses in, and you need to back your judgment and back your confidence. And we were just delighted to get him.
Excellent. Wow, very good. Could you tell us a little bit more about Rashabar's journey, leading up to the Coventry Stakes and maybe the key moments that shaped his success at Royal Ascot?
Yeah, I think, look, you can only really be governed by the form around these 2-year-olds, especially as Royal Ascot comes so quickly. So Brian was very instrumental in this. He was he identified straight away that the Coventry was going to be the race for him, and that was pretty early on. You know, even before he ran at Newbury, we knew that he was nice. He was working very well. He was kind of head and shoulders above our speedy, sharper, kind of early types. But he was, again, I go back to his mentality. He was mentally head and shoulders above the rest. And he just took everything so easily, so in his stride. He's bred to get further as well. And so that's kind of why Brian identified the Coventry and said, right, let's put him in at the deep end. Let's go to Newbury, which is always a very good maiden, which he shaped up really, really nicely and ran very well. And then it was, okay, well, let's find another race, go and win. And then we go to the Coventry, a kind of 10-1 shot. And, we got unlucky at Chester. He got a wide draw. He was slowly away, missed the break. And then you're on the back foot all the way around at Chester. And, for him to finish the way he did and finish so close to the winner, from having to come around the field, he did the fastest finals furlong time-wise. And then the winner went and bolted up in the Woodcote Stakes. So, I think I did an interview just before Royal Ascot, and they said, what do you think of his chances? I said, a lot of people are probably going to make him a 25-1 shot. I didn't realize he was going to be an 80-1 shot. Whereas in my mind, I think he's a 10-1 shot.
Okay. Very interesting. Excellent.
So yeah, no, it's good.
That's very good. Can we talk a little bit more about the syndicate, as you mentioned? So how does the syndicate model, employed by Manton Thoroughbreds, help create maybe a more inclusive and rewarding ownership experience for members?
Yeah, interesting question, really. I suppose what we've always worked to do is, include. I like to have a very personal experience for every owner. So everybody knows, everybody has my number. I speak to the owners on a very regular basis. Some owners who come in, this is our 9th partnership now that Rashabar's in. We're going into our 10th year. We do one every year. And we've had people that are new, so have never owned a racehorse before. So we really try to, I suppose, not overcomplicate things. Try to make sure that everyone's included. As my wife says, sometimes you're on the phone and I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. It's a completely different language. Do you know what I mean? So we try to keep it as so that everybody is included, so that we're not just spieling on about racing jargon and people get left behind. So
Sure, that makes sense.
That is really the first and foremost for me, is that people are everybody's included. And then it comes to the horses and what we do hospitality wise. We make sure that we put something on for all the owners when they come racing. We have open days down at the yard, whereby people come down and see the horses in each stage, from when we first buy them to the middle of the season to the end of the season, so that again they're getting that feeling of the development of the horses all the way through. And then it's our communication, which I think is very good. Brian is brilliant in communicating on the development of the horses. On race days, we have a really good, and it's a bit of fun. It's a WhatsApp group where all the owners are on it, and we invite anybody to be on it. It's either the owners' daughters, sons, it's brothers, sisters. We want everybody. We try to make it like a community. There's a bit of banter on there, but then there's some targeted questions which we field and are very welcome for these questions, because it's important that that everybody feels like there's transparency there, and that, you know, they feel part of the journey, which is
That's
really important.
great. That seems a bit like a big family in a way.
Honestly, yes. And you know, it's you know, we've had people that have owned horses on their own, that, you know, maybe they're giving, you know, 60,000 for a yearling, and then it's costing them another 40 in training, and they may have had success, they may not have, but you know, I've kind of, and we do everything through word of mouth, so it's more just meeting people, or an owner who's had a good experience with us will bring a friend in, and you know, so, you know, then they all of a sudden come in and go, well, actually, it's quite fun. This, you know, this, I'm not on my own anymore. I'm not going to the races and standing in the paddock with just me, the trainer, and the jockey. Actually, there's a bit of a team here, and you know, there's we've had people from all walks of life. You know, we've got one very lovely owner, who lives up in Scotland. He drives a taxi, and he bought
Oh,
into the Manton Thoroughbred 7 syndicate, where we had Isaac Shelby, who obviously was sold, and he probably bought himself a Ferrari. But but he's a big supporter of ours, and you know, it's just, you know, we've got people in America, we've got people in Australia, that just really are all in it because they love racing. And we try to, with 6 horses, you get a lot of racing every year. And I think that the model really works for people that just love the sport.
excellent. Very good answer. When preparing for high-profile races, like the Coventry Stakes, what are some of the key challenges faced by 2-year-old horses like Rashabar?
Look, I think soundness, obviously, you know, you've got to have a very sound horse. And I go very much go back to what I've kind of said from the start. It's what's up here.
Mhm.
You know, you can have horses that go to Ascot who have untold amounts of ability, but can go there and they're not mentally ready. And it can be a very, very daunting place to go. You know, I'm sure you've been there yourself. You're in amongst, you know, even the parade ring is, it's like an amphitheater, you know, and for a young horse who may have, you know, gone to a small track and won nicely in front of a crowd of 1,000 people, and you know, the world is its oyster. It can go to Ascot, and you know, it's kind of like, Christ, what's going on here? And it can put the heebie-jeebies into them. I look, again, it's not the technical terms, but you know, I'm trying to paint a picture.
Sure.
You know, and I think a lot of it is
In the
definitely up
mind.
there.
Fair enough. And now let's talk a little bit more about Manton Thoroughbreds. So could you shed some lights on the decision-making process behind starting Manton Thoroughbreds and the vision you had in mind, when founding the partnership with Brian Meehan?
Yeah, I think you know, Brian and I really took a good long hard look at the industry and kind of where we were at that time. And you know, numbers were good, but you know, owner breeders were very much down in the yard. And you know, Brian has always had a model of buying his own horses, and you know, buying horses on spec and selling them on out of the yard to his trusted owners. And you know, it's still very much the same model today. But when I kind of got involved, started originally with the smaller syndicates, and um, you know, we quickly really realized that the owners that were still around wanted more racing, and it was hard to provide that with just one horse. So the reason why we came up with a number of 6 is because it was a tidy number. You know, we knew that, you know, each horse is going to have an average of, you know, 3 to 4 runs a year, so it's going to provide plenty of racing for everybody. And with an average price of 50,000, you know, it for us, because don't forget, we're the ones that are underwriting this thing. And if no owners turn up to buy any shares, then, you know, we're the one that's footing the bill.
Sure.
It was manageable. And we know with an average of 50,000, you're going to be going out after some smart colts. And there's thousands of horses that come up for sale every year. You've just got to do your homework and make sure that you stay within that budget, and come away with some nice horses. And I feel like we've done that every year. And okay, a few years haven't gone quite according to plan, but that's racing. It's been great, and it's, to be honest, it's only getting better, and it's only going from strength to strength. I think when we set it up, I was 26, so I was still very, very, very young in the industry. And I think that it was a big step for Brian to take a gamble on setting up with a 26-year-old. But I suppose there was maturity there because of the amount of time I've spent around racing, which has been pretty my whole life. And really, I feel like it's that partnership is maturing, and Brian and I are really understanding each other's strengths. And I think it's definitely showing in the last, if you go through our last 5 years, it's the quality of the horse is getting stronger and stronger.
Perfect. You mentioned the partnership started when you were 26. Could you
Mm.
tell us a bit more how exactly that started, between Brian Meehan and Manton Thoroughbred?
It was, to be honest, I drew up a plan. And I wanted to, obviously, Manton was where I lived at the time.
Okay.
The colors were just, my brother was running a syndicate at the time, but he was closing that up. And the syndicate and the horses were running in the colors then. So I definitely felt like there was something within me that really did want to keep the colors going, but I wanted to do it on a big scale. And so I sat down with Brian, drew out a business plan for him, and he loved it. And we jumped in with 2 feet, and the first year we hit the ground running. We sold a horse to Hong Kong. For good money. He won a Newbury maiden called Christchurch. And then we had a horse called Smuggler's Moon that won first time out at Newbury as a 3-year-old, then went to Epsom, won a listed race at Epsom, and he was also sold to Hong Kong for very good money. So, we all of a sudden, it was kind of like, well, wow, here we go. This is working. And the owners all got nicely paid, and they rolled in again. And the second year, we Barraquero came out and won the Richmond Stakes. So, well, this game is easy all of a sudden.
Very straightforward indeed.
Yeah. And then 2 years, then we had two blank years. But look, yes, it was very much, a 50-50 partnership between
Sure.
Brian and I. And we decided that we were going to do all the yearling buying outside of Manton Thoroughbreds together at the time as well. So it's been 10 years, and we've had a lot of nice horses both in the partnership and outside the partnership bought. And I can't wait for the next 10 years.
Excellent. In what ways do you see Rashabar success at Royal Ascot maybe impacting the future direction of Manton Thoroughbreds and the horses you choose to invest in?
Interesting question, really. I think a lot of people, after a success like that, are tempted to double down, increase budgets. Personally, I think it's stick to what you know.
Okay.
I think that the numbers are very manageable for people that are investing, or putting in, sorry. And when you start doubling down, and all of a sudden the expectation is doubled. People feel like, because you're increasing your budget, that we're going to have a Royal Ascot winner every year. But what we're doing works. Maybe if there is enough demand, where I can see it growing is maybe instead of doing one syndicate, there's two syndicates running alongside each other. And we have 12 horses, and if the demand is there, but structurally, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, very good. And considering the success, he has achieved at such a young age, how does this reflect on the overall strategy and goals of Manton Thoroughbreds in terms of nurturing and developing young talent in the racing industry?
Um, yeah, again, good question. I mean, I kind of see, Brian is a key player here, really, when it comes to nurturing and developing 2-year-olds. I'm part of the selection process, and it's a process that we've refined over 10 years together. But really, once those horses leave the sales, leave the breakers, come into Brian's yard, that's all down to him and his team, and he has a fantastic team there. His record with 2-year-olds is fantastic. It's brilliant. You go through all those big 2-year-old races. There's a Brian Meehan winner somewhere, although the Coventry wasn't one. So, but his next run will be in the Prix Morny. Brian's won that twice. The superlative. There's so many lovely 2-year-old races. The Richmond, I think he's won 3 times. He is the reason that Manton Thoroughbreds is doing so well when it comes to these 2-year-old
To this
successes.
young talent, yeah. And talking a little bit more about your father, Robert Sangster, how does, his legacy influence your approach to horse racing and the choices you make as a principal of Manton Thoroughbreds?
Yeah, good question. Um, Look, I think, my father was very well known for being a humble guy,
Okay.
very generous with his time, and a listener. And I feel that I try to bring all of those attributes to my approach, with being the principal of Manton Thoroughbreds. Not only that, but in all parts of my life. And I think that it's what I try to teach to my children as well. I hope that my owners feel that I do that. I feel that I'm very approachable. And it's one of the I think again, I can't speak for them, but this is, as I say, we've been doing it 10 years, and I've never fallen out with one of my owners. There's never ever been an issue, and I take great pride in that.
Excellent. Yeah. You mentioned, yeah, similar to a big family, trying to keep things light and fairly simple, I guess, for everyone. I think that's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
And
we've got to have a bit of fun along the way, haven't we?
well, that's true.
And that's certainly what he did.
We do need the fun. And looking ahead, what are the next step for Rashabar in terms of his racing career and potential future appearances?
Yeah, I think, look, Brian is very keen on the Breeders' Cup. He's had a lot of success there. He feels that there's quite a lot of stamina there on the dam side, obviously being out of a Camelot mare, and there's a fair bit of stamina in the second dam there. So we do feel that the mile will be well within his reach towards the end of the season. But we'd like to keep him lightly raced until the Breeders' Cup. And I think that the obvious choice would be the Prix Morny, mainly because he is French bred. So he picks up the bonuses. And again, Brian's won the race twice before, Arcano, and I think it was bad as I want to be. So he knows the right horse for a race like that. And I'd be going there full of confidence.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And finally, on to the last question. Could you share with us any memorable or defining moments from Rashabar's journey that stand out to you as a particularly meaningful or inspiring story?
Um, I think actually it was 2 weeks before Ascot,
Oh,
and it was his final bit of work on the grass. And we've got 3 lads that come in who are jumps jockeys. and you know, very, very successful jockeys, and Brendan Powell being one of them, who, you know, everybody in British and Irish racing anyway would know Brendan. And he was put into a piece of work, and he was riding Rashabar. And I kind of looked at him, and he was kind of looking at me going, "What is this?" And I said, "That's Rashabar. He runs in the commentary next week." And he went, "Oh, okay." And I could see the cogs kind of turning, and then the three horses went down to go and do their bit of work, and Rashabar sat about 3 lengths off them, and he just kind of tidally went past us. And I kind of stood where the horses come back down after their work, and I looked at Brendan, and he just went like that. And I knew we were in for a big run, and when a jumps jockey is trying to hold on for dear life. So no,
Great.
that was really when I got excited. And you know, he's a horse that's just going to keep improving. And I go back every time, really, you know, he's like a 4-year-old. And I think he's got a huge future ahead of him.
That's wonderful. That's great. We hope so. We hope so for you.
Me
Well,
too.
thank you so much, Sam. That was
My
great.
pleasure.
A lot of very good answers and very interesting. Thank you so
I
much.
hope I didn't ramble on too much.
No, that was very good. That was very good. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day in the
I
UK.
will. You sleep well.
Thank you.